Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Jaya Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Padavrajaka Acharya Asatara Sri Sriman. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Padavrajaka Acharya Asatara Sri Sriman, A.C. Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajamundana Madam Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mahapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Most beautiful Lordship Shri Shrikmeni Dwarkadish Ki Jai. Shrikmeni Dwarkanath Ki Jai. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Samabeta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead Ki Jai. ISKCON Los Angeles Yatra Ki Jai. Brihad Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Haribol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Glory Srila Prabhupada. So let me just find the verse here. 9:655. Okay, so we're continuing our reading in the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're in chapter 6, just finishing the chapter. Chapter is entitled Downfall of Sobhari Muni. And today we'll do the last verse, which is text 55. Uh, 55, yeah. Ta Swapatyur Maharaja. Excuse me, I gotta drink a little water. Niriksha Dhyatmikim Gatim Anviyus Tat Prabhavena Agnim Shantam Ivarchishaha Taksapatyur Maharaja Niriksha Dhyatmikim Gatim Anviyus Tat Prabhavena Agnim Shantam Ivarchishaha Taksapatyur Maharaja Niriksha Dhyatmikim Gatim Anviyus Tat Prabhavena Agnim Shantam Ivarchishaha Taksapatyur Maharaja Niriksha Dhyatmikim Gatim Anviyus Tat Prabhavena Agnim Shantam Ivarchishaha. Please chant. Taksapatyur Maharaja Niriksha Dhyatmikim Gatim Anviyus Tat Prabhavena Agnim Shantam Ivarchishaha. Anviyastat prabhave. Rikshadhyatmakim gatim. Anviyastat prabhavena. Agnim shantam ivarchishaha. Taksvapatyur maharaja. Nirikshadhyatmakim gatim. Anviyastat prabhavena. Agnim shantam ivarchishaha. Taksvapatyur maharaja. Nirikshadhyatmakim gatim. Anviyastat prabhavena. Agnim shantam ivarchishaha. Vaishnavis. Taksvapatyur maharaja. Nirikshadhyatmakim gatim. Anviyastat prabhavena. Agnim shantam ivarchishaha. All right, so no one else wants to chant? Synonyms. Taha. All the wives of Sobhari. Swapatyuhu. With their own husband. Maharaja. O King Parikshit. Niriksha. Observing. Adhyatmikim. Spiritual. Gatim. Progress. Anviyuhu. Followed. Tatprabhavena. By the influence of their husband. Although they were unfit, by the influence of their husband, they also could go to the spiritual world. Agnim, the fire. Shantam, completely merged. Iva, like. Archishaha, the flames. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. O Maharaj Parikshit, by observing their husband progressing in spiritual existence, so Parimuni's wives were also able to enter the spiritual world by his spiritual power, just as the flames of a fire cease when the fire is extinguished. Please repeat, O Maharaj Parikshit. Notice there's a long I. Everybody keeps saying Parikshit, but it's a long I. Parikshit. Long I. Okay. O Maharaj Parikshit. By observing their husband progressing in spiritual existence, Sobhari Muni's wives were also able to enter the spiritual world by his spiritual power. Just as the flames of a fire cease when the fire is extinguished. Okay, Srila Prabhupada's purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 32, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. Women are not considered very powerful in following spiritual principles, but if a woman is fortunate enough to get a suitable husband who is spiritually advanced, and if she always engages in his service, she also gets the same benefit as her husband. Here it is clearly said that the wives of Sobhari Muni also entered the spiritual world by the influence of their husband. They were unfit, but because they were faithful followers of their husband, they also entered the spiritual world with him. Thus, a woman should be a faithful servant of her husband, and if the husband is spiritually advanced, the woman will automatically get the opportunity to enter the spiritual world. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve, Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvashesha Shrunivadi Paschata Deshtarine. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya, Chakshur Unvilitam Jena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtang, Sapitang Jena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam, Shri Gurun Vaishavangsha. Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragana Tanvatam Tangsajivam Chadvaitam Savadutam Purjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvatangsha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripasinuvya Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivan Sati Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So verses like this give us an opportunity to clear up any lingering misconceptions, doubts about what is the position of women in Vedic culture, what's the role. Are women spirit souls? Yes. It's the female body, male body, animal body, plant body, bird, any body that you see in the material world, there is a spirit soul in that body. And what is the nature of that spirit soul? That spirit soul is an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna declares that in the Bhagavad Gita. And he loves all his parts and parcels. So there's no distinction in that regard. And the Vedic culture, although it was from the outside vision, male dominant, patrilinear, still the position of women was such that they were secure, they were safe, they were protected, they were taken care of. Just think, any culture that the king would be willing to die to protect a cow, don't you think women are exalted in such cultures? Come on. You know, people still have this misconception that women are somehow subjugated in the Vedic culture. No, that's not a fact. That's not a fact. We're dealing with ideal society in which everyone has his or her role to play. The king has a definite role to play. The advisors, the brahmanas, they have definite roles to play. The vaishyas, they have a definite role to play in society. The shudras, the father, the mother, the children, everybody has a particular role to play. It's like a very fine-tuned drama where you're told specifically what your role is and you're supposed to play that role. No matter what your internal situation is. The example I like to use is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, internally, he knew he was a manjari, a female form in the spiritual world. But externally, he was a man. He had 10 children. He was a magistrate. He was heavy. He didn't let anybody, transgress the law. He was very heavy. So there was no confusion in the material sense. Externally, he had no confusion. He wasn't thinking, well, I know I'm a gopi, so maybe I should wear a sari to Mangalarti. But no, he knew his role in society. He played his role perfectly. So every one of us, when we're in the material realm, according to Varna and Ashram, according to your sex, your whatever, you have a particular role to play. We have particular roles to play. And the Vedas inform us that's what they're there for. And the corollaries like Manu Samhita, they give us information exactly how we're supposed to play our role. How the children should suit the parents, what the parents' responsibility is to the children. Nowadays, all confused. They have no idea. They practically from birth, they tell the children, do whatever you want to do. And then when they do something they don't like, then they want to kill them. No guidance, no real, and then you're upset when somebody does something that you don't like. Hello? If you want things to run properly, then there has to be guidance, there has to be responsibility, there has to be role playing. So the women in the Vedic culture played a particular role. They had that role to play. And if they played it properly, perfectly, then they got result. Similarly for the men, it's not that the men had a free ride. The men had their definite particular role to play, and if they played it properly, just like Sobari Muni, he was a great sage meditating, he made a mistake, cursing Garuda, and he had to pay the price. And now he's straightening himself up, and he's going to go back to Godhead, and he's taking all 50 wives with him. Obviously, even materially, they were not ordinary women. He had 50 wives, and how many children did he each have? 100. Any woman here think she could have 100 children in this lifetime? Want to give it a shot? So we're not dealing with, even materially speaking, we're not dealing with ordinary personalities here. Sobari Muni, obviously not an ordinary man, and his 50 wives were obviously not ordinary women. They were princesses, and they had some material Shakti. So the role of women, now this verse is quoted, Prabhupada quotes, starts out the purport by quoting 932, where Krishna says, all of them, no matter Papa Yonaya, no matter what kind of birth they take, how low, whatever. And we have to admit, there are higher and lower births in the material world. It's not everybody's born in the same circumstance. There is a hierarchy amongst the material forms, right? And that's why we start out in the verse that informs us about the 8,400,000 forms of life. Jalaja Navalakshani, Stavara Lakshavingshati, Krimayo Rujan Sankhyanka, Pakshinam Dashalakshanam. Tingshalakshani Pashava, Chatur Lakshani Manashta. So there is a hierarchy there. Jalaja, though anything that takes birth in the water is considered like the lowest forms of life. If you take birth in the water, that's a lower form of life. So Jalaja Navalakshani, 900,000 species in the water. We don't have to do research. You don't have to join Scripps Institute and, get a degree in marine biology. And no, you just take what the Vedas say, 900,000 species of life. Bas. Jalaja Navalakshani, Stavara Lakshavingshati. Then those who are fixed, like the trees, the creepers, the plants, Lakshavingshati, 2 million types of those. They're fixed. They can't move anywhere. They, in some ways, they're superior to us. You go north of here, you have the redwood forest, whatever's left of it, thank God. They haven't cut it all down. Some of those trees, they've dated, by their imperfect dating methods even, but 4,000 years old. That means they were standing there when Krishna was on the planet. Almost, no. Krishna was here 5,000 years ago. Some of them are 5,000 years old. There are a couple of them that were here when Krishna was on the planet. But they were trees. They couldn't take advantage. They couldn't go to Vrindavan and see Krishna. They were standing in one spot in California. So in some ways they're superior to us. They live a lot longer. But because human beings have developed intelligence, all these other life forms on this planet are in danger. Isn't it? Even the ones that live the longest, like the trees, we come along, cut them down. The ones that are bigger and more powerful, polar bears and like that, we develop guns and other ways of killing them, destroying their habitat. So there's a hierarchy of intelligence. The most intelligent person is God, Krishna. And that's why we have to submit ourselves to Him. The stronger animals, they have to submit to us because we're more intelligent, materially speaking. And that's why men control elephants. I don't think there's any park in the world where the elephants are running the park and the human beings are running around, playing tricks and stuff. It's just the opposite. Because human beings are more intelligent. They create these parks and they populate them with animals that they train to do tricks and stuff, even though the animals are more powerful. Of course, once in a while they remind us. If you go on YouTube, you'll find so many videos of elephants killing people. But generally speaking, or zoo animals, right? Just recently, there was a big flood in Europe, in the country of Georgia, which I've been to. I've been to that capital, Tbilisi, so it really rang home with me. There was a big flood there, and the zoo in the capital, Tbilisi, the animals escaped. Tigers, lions, hippos, and human beings, just to show that we're not perfectly intelligent, they rounded them up, they killed a bunch of them, and they said to everybody, now it's safe to go out. We have taken the tally, and we've either captured them or we killed them. But they were wrong. There was one tiger they hadn't found. One tiger that they forgot about. So some guy went into his barn feeling safe, and the tiger was there and killed him. And then the cops came and killed the tiger. So human beings, not perfectly intelligent. We can't even do arithmetic right. I mean, they should have known. How many tigers did we have? 20, right, or whatever. But they did a head count, and they thought they accounted for everything, but they missed one. So back to the point again, because this comes up repeatedly, that in the Vedic culture, it's not that women were considered inferior, but everybody has a role to play. The father, the mother, the governor, the king, everybody has a role to play. And that role is strictly delineated, and you're supposed to follow it. So as a woman in Vedic culture, you had a role to play. You got married, you took care of the household affairs like that, and we can't, it may not sit right with us nowadays to our mentality, but all evidence is there to show that it actually worked. It ran properly. The society ran properly. Everybody was happy when there was a good leader, especially. That's why the Vedic Krishna points out in the Bhagavad Gita that this knowledge is meant mainly for the Rajarshis, the saintly kings. In other words, kings who are not inimical to God, who are godly. They want to do things in a godly way. So this knowledge is meant first and foremost for them, but it was available to others also. The business of the Brahmanas were to broadcast this knowledge. Patan, yajan, yajan, dana, particular. They were supposed to learn this knowledge and broadcast it to everybody else. That was the role of the Brahmana. It wasn't just a willy-nilly anybody do anything they want kind of thing. The Brahmanas were trained in the Vedic knowledge, and then they were willing to train others. They were trained in how to perform proper yoga, patan, yajan, yajan, and then they were going to perform sacrifices for the benefit of others or train others how to perform sacrifice. This is the business of the Brahmana. And the Kshatriyas, like I said, they were willing to die just to protect even a cow, what to speak of a woman. The whole Mahabharata, the central figure is actually Draupadi. That the Pandavas were willing to die to protect Draupadi's honor. They were willing to die for Draupadi. So what more could a woman want than a husband who was willing to die to protect you? Do you want something else more than that? Instead of today's cowards that they want to enjoy with you and at the first sign of danger they run away and leave you alone. You know? Is that the kind of men that women want? They claim that you're my equal, whatever. And then at the first sign of danger, any kind of danger, physical danger, economic danger, whatever it is, they run away. Saubhara Muni had 100 children, each of 50 wives, so that, do the math, how much is that? 5,000 children. But he was there, responsible, took care of them. Nowadays, somebody has one child, and it's too much, I can't stand it, they run away. So which culture would you rather live in? You know, do you want today's so-called free society or anything goes, or do you want a culture in which you're protected? So that was the culture. It was a culture of protection. And, as it's stated here, if the women took shelter, Krishna doesn't say only women, Striya, Vaishya, Tata, Sudras. So the Vaishyas, the Sudras, they're all considered lower birth. In other words, they have not taken a birth in which their proclivity is serious spiritual advancement. The Vaishyas, their proclivity, first of all, is to do business, trade, banking, trade, cow protection is supposed to be their main business, but they're business-oriented, the Vaishyas. That's their main orientation. And we have to accept, some souls are born into this world. It's not that everybody's born on a Paramahansa platform. Some are born in the world with a proclivity to do business. That's their main drive in life. So they have to be trained how to do it properly. Right? So you have the Brahmanas are being trained, the Kshatriyas are trained to give protection, the Vaishyas are trained to do business properly, and the Shudras are not really trainable to do any of those three higher caste activities, so they're trained to help, assist those higher castes. But they were not looked down upon. Because again, the whole Vedic culture is one that's centered around spiritual understanding that everyone is spiritual. So not even a tree should be abused in any way, what to speak of a human being of any sex or race or color. These were just understood. Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahma Gavini Hasini. Sunichaiva Sapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. It's a culture of pundits, of learned individuals. And the pundit sees everyone equally. Whether it's an elephant, a dog eater, a Brahmin, it doesn't matter. If you're actually learned, you see them equally. You see them equally. Even inanimate objects were handled respectfully. There's still traces of that in India nowadays, where the craftsmen, they practically worship their tools. So everything had its place, everything had its role, everything was properly organized. But because we're living in a disorganized society, those who are not respectable, they want to be respected, and if you disrespect them, they want to kill you, even if you just look at them wrong nowadays, right? I use this example a lot when I preach in colleges and schools, that karma, activity is so subtle that if you're dealing with the wrong people, if you just look at them, what are you looking at me like that for? You disrespecting me, right? Just a look can get you in trouble. What to speak of when you say something or do something. So this is the nature of the world that we're living in. It's a very dangerous place. We were reminded last night across the street. We were all thinking that it was the marijuana dispensary that was being attacked, but it was actually the phone shop next door. Some guy went in there and beat up the owner and had some hostages, and cops came and helicopters overhead, and you know. So this is the world that we're living in. You know, you can't even run a little phone shop without being in danger. But the Vedic culture was a culture of protection. Now, as it's stated here, if the woman served a suitable husband properly, not just any guy, you know, but the guy had to be, again, properly trained, suitable husband, then they would get the same benefit. And we're in the same situation. Not qualified, having taken birth in Kali Yuga, Shudra at best. And most of us took birth looking up at the Shudra category. So we're not qualified, and therefore we have to take shelter of a suitable husband. The guru is also seen as like a husband, pati. So we have to be trained how to take shelter of our suitable husband, guru, and then we can go back to Godhead. Not on our own strength, absolutely not. Not qualified by birth. We were all mistrained before we came in contact. Of course, a few of you may have taken birth from devotee parents. But even so, still, if you're not careful, we've seen so many examples, the birth is an opportunity to go forward. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the result. You have to do the work. You're placed in an opportunistic, or in a place where you have an opportunity for money, education, spiritual advancement, but you still have to do the work. You have to fly your own plane. Prabhupada used to use that analogy, that you can be trained how to fly a plane, but once you go up there, you're on your own. You're on your own. If you get in trouble, you can radio for help, and somebody can tell you, hey, pull this lever, do this, don't forget to do that. And again, there's a modern example. Not so long ago, a few months back, there was a horrific plane crash in Taiwan. There's video of it on YouTube. Plane took off, it was one of those prop jets. And it was going over a bridge, and all of a sudden it did like that and slammed into the bridge and fell into the river. So they just discovered that it was pilot error. The guy was a not so very good pilot. He had trouble even when he was learning a simulator. I don't know how they hired him to fly later on, you know. But somewhere or other he got a job as a pilot and made one little error when the plane took off, and it went like that and slammed into the bridge and crashed in the river. So you have to fly your own plane. This is what we're being trained to do here. We're being trained to fly our own plane in the spiritual sense. That much Guru can do for us. If we take shelter of a qualified spiritual master and we submit ourselves humbly to be trained, then we can be trained how to fly back to Godhead. But if we don't want to hear, or we do some things and don't do other things, and this is the situation. So in this particular month, the month of Purushottama, it is stressed because we all have a natural tendency to want to glorify others, to talk about other people. But who's the best person to glorify, and who's the best person to take shelter of? Krishna. So in the Purushottama month, we should make a concentrated, concerted effort to glorify Krishna, to take shelter of Krishna, to hear about Krishna, even more than normal. That's what the Purushottama month is meant for. Concentrate your mind on Krishna, and you will get millions of times the benefit that you would normally get by doing it in this month. So one of the things that people do in this month, devotees do, is they daily recite, which chapter? 15th chapter, which is called? Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. So it's a very short chapter. It's only 20 verses. Only 20 verses. And Krishna starts out by explaining our situation, where we are currently situated. Urva Moolam, Adho Gotcha. That the ashwatam tree, the banyan tree, it's a very funny tree. There are some here in LA. Especially there's a park in Beverly Hills that has some pretty big banyan trees. So if you're not forgotten what a banyan tree looks like, you can go there. But they can grow in such a way that they're growing up, but then the branches go back down and they form another root system, and it can be so complicated you don't know what's up, what's down when you're looking at a banyan tree. So Krishna says that this material world is like that. This whole material world is like that, where you can't tell what's up and what's down. but it's like an upside down tree where the roots are going up and the branches are going down. And he said, if you take the time to understand, to study, and be trained, in other words, we're not going to figure it out on our own, but if we're trained in understanding this complex situation that we find ourselves in, then you can make progress. Krishna says you can make progress. You can learn how to develop the qualities that will lead you back to God. Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha. And that verse, text 5. Nirmana, the first thing is don't be puffed up. Mana means pride. So nirmana is the very first thing that Krishna points out to. Don't be proud. What do you have to be proud of? Whatever you think you have is actually coming from me. You think you're a very good artist or singer or administrator or whatever, that ability is coming from me. Krishna said early in the Gita, I am the ability in man. So whatever ability you have, it's not yours to be proud of. It's yours to use in Krishna's service. And if you use it in Krishna's service, then your pride comes down. But if you use it for your own aggrandizement, then you become even more foolishly puffed up. So yes, it's recommended to read that chapter every day, meditate on it, but consciously put Krishna in the center of your life in this month as much as possible. Meditate on Krishna. Again, we have the natural tendency to, like, people are again going to be talking about what happened last night. This person, that person, one of our members in our community here had just come out of the store 10 minutes before it was taken over by this robber. He went to pay his phone bill there. He came out and 10 minutes later, boom, this guy came and took over. So it becomes the talk of the block and this and that. But while we're chit-chatting about this and another, put in a few words about Krishna. Krishna is more important than anybody else. He establishes this in the Bhagavad Gita, and he says that himself in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 15th chapter, towards the end. He says that anyone who knows me as the Supreme Person, free from doubt, is a knower of everything. He therefore engages in full devotional service to me. This is the test. This is the evidence that we actually know Krishna, is that we will engage in full devotional service to Krishna. Krishna says that in text 19. Anyone who knows me as the Supreme, free from doubt. And that's why we have classes, that's why I have so many books and senior devotees to approach. Because naturally, as long as we're in this material world and we're not yet perfect in our spiritual practice, we're going to have some doubts. Again, about the role of women or whatever, there are going to be doubts. Don't harbor them in your heart. Find somebody that you can discuss with. This is one of the 6 exchanges of devotees, to reveal your mind confidentially and to hear confidentially from somebody else. So any doubts that are lingering, one should address them. Don't just brush them over to the corner of your heart, and no, they'll grow into something big later on. And sometimes it's even more mundane stuff, like when Prabhupada said they didn't go to the moon. Some devotees actually left the moon movement because they were so scientifically brainwashed that they thought, no, I can't believe this, they didn't go to the moon. We saw it on TV. They were walking on the moon. Prabhupada said they didn't go. How is that possible? So they left. So one has to have firm faith in the words of Guru and Krishna, and then one can make fast progress back to Godhead. And in the last verse, Krishna says that this is the most secret part of the Vedas, this knowledge that I am the Supreme. But he says, I am declaring it to you. Why? Idam uktva maya anaga. Maya anaga. He says, because you're sinless. And he said to Arjuna. So we should strive for that. Now some people say that's impossible. You can't be sinless. Even the pure devotees breathing air and killing insects, lighting fire, killing germs, whatever. Yes. That's why Krishna says, Sarvanamam Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Aham Tvam Sarvapapebhyo. If you surrender to me, then any incidental sinful reaction that you're going to get, even if you're a pure devotee, I will take that reaction. I will take it. So that's how we become sinless. If we completely surrender to Krishna, then any incidental sinful reaction, you step on something, just like, unfortunately, a couple of days back, I was walking in the hallway in my home, and there was a spider. I didn't see him. I stepped on it. As soon as I stepped, I felt, oh my God. And poor guy, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, he left his body, but it was definitely not intentional. So these things happen. Unintentionally, you're going to step on something, you're going to breathe, whatever. But Krishna says, if you are surrendering to me, trying to surrender to me, I will absolve you from that kind of reaction. And we see practically in the case of the Pandavas that They did things that would not ordinarily be considered sinful, like Arjuna killing Karna when he was off the chariot unarmed. But Krishna told him to do it, and therefore it was perfect. And any sinful reaction that would have normally been accrued because of that, Krishna will take that reaction. So this is our business. How to surrender to Krishna, how to put Krishna in the center, not myself, not some, love interest, not some political interest. Krishna in the center, that's Krishna's. God means that person, he's also a person, who by nature should be in the center of everybody's attraction, attention, love. That's the position of God. And in this Purushottama month, we should remind ourselves at every moment of that. Krishna, 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 hey. All right, so we can stop here. Any questions, any comments? Yes, Ananda Kirtan Prabhu. Naribam.
Thank you for the nice class. I actually have a few questions, but I don't want to waste people's time, so I'll just ask one or two.
Yeah, we can always continue outside, but ask one anyway.
Okay. So you were talking about the caste system at the beginning, Varnashram, and I was just wondering, what would you tell people that don't have knowledge of Vedic culture that criticize the caste system of India?
Well, it's not a caste system. It's not a caste system. It is, as Krishna says, your guna and karma. That's what it's about. And we can see that everybody, lo and behold, any country that you go to in the world, there is an intelligent class. The philosophers, the scientists, like that. Any country you go to, even in Aboriginal society, you have the more intelligent shamans and whatever. There's always somebody who's on top because of their intellect. And then you have the martial class, the ones who by their nature they want to get into, protection and warfare, fighting. You have the Vaishya class, the ones who just by their nature they're more into agriculture, growing stuff. It's just natural everywhere you go. So the Varnashram system means that you take that natural tendency and train it properly. No confusion. Not that today I think I'm a Kshatriya, tomorrow I'm a Vaishya. No. The Guru would pick the Varna based on this observation of the boy, girl as they grew up. This is your Varna. And you get trained in that. So the Pandavas, they were all trained as Kshatriyas. They showed later on when they went in exile that they could disguise themselves perfectly as Brahmanas. They could, because they had their advanced devotees, they're pure devotees. They can act as Brahmanas if they wanted to. But their natural proclivity was Kshatriyas, administrators. So that's what they were trained as. So it's not a caste system that you're born into somewhere. That's what modern interpretation is. You're born into this caste and you're stuck there forever. But that's not the Vedic culture. Vedic culture was by guna and karma. And even after birth, you can change. We see Vishwamitra Muni. He was a Kshatriya by nature, but when he was defeated by Vasishtha, then he decided, I want to become a Brahmana. So he underwent severe austerities to become a Brahmana. So you could even change. But the general tendency was that you had a natural proclivity for one of those four castes, or as you say, if you want to call it caste, or varnas as we say. And then you were trained in that. You were trained properly as a Brahmana. You were trained properly as a Kshatriya, as a Vaishya, as a Shudra, whatever. Is that okay? But we also say on top of that in Kali Yuga, because the Varnashram system is completely lost practically, Sthane Sthita, stay wherever you are. Whatever you're doing now, okay. You're a bus driver, fine. You're a politician, fine. Whatever you're doing, house painter, whatever you're doing, stay there and just hear submissively the words of Krishna from those who are devotees of Krishna. In other words, buy a Bhagavad Gita, take it home, read it, and you'll start to understand. And it's amazing how this knowledge. The other day, literally, I was outside. Some guy came to deliver. We buy packing goods for the BBT book room, boxes and packing material. So this guy, Hispanic young man, I'd say about 30 years old, he drives up, and it was the first time he was making the delivery. Previously, other people had made the delivery from his company. So he wasn't sure what to do. So I brought him to the book room. As soon as he walked in, he saw Bhagavad Gita, the soft cover. He said, I have that book. I said, really? Where did you get it? He said, Huntington Beach. Some guy sold it to me. He said, I'm halfway through it and I'm really liking it. This is really a good book. So here's this guy, he's a truck driver. Not some highly placed individual, but by his, good fortune, he's intelligent enough to understand it. And this is very important knowledge, and he's drinking it in, and he's loving it. So this opportunity, Prophet wanted to give to everyone. No matter who you are, the president, street sweeper, get a Bhagavad Gita, read it, and try to get into it and understand it, and your life will become perfect. All right, we can stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.